Hey, sewer raiders, welcome to episode 7 of the Spartan Tool Procast, brought to you by the International Institute of Sewer and Pipe Cleaning, where you can send your technicians to a 2-day course, get them trained by the best in the industry, and get them certified as a drain cleaner. You can visit those guys at www.sewerinstitute.com. I am Mike Sekach, and with me as always is Eric Boonstra and our
Hey guys,
lovely producer, Emily Simmons. Eric, Emily, how you guys doing today?
we're having a good time. It's Friday.
Yeah, I'm good, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready for this holiday weekend. So
Absolutely.
we got a really special episode today. I'm excited about it. So before we jump into that, Emily, I'm going to toss it over to you. Why don't you recap episode 6 that we had last week, and then turn it over to Eric for some commentary.
Sounds good, Mike. Mike's going to be back with us in just a second. Last week, we talked with Ann Brennan and Frank Liguori from Warthog Nozzles. They talked about their favorite Warthog nozzles, how to pick the right nozzle for your Spartan jetter, and just the benefits of using the toughest nozzles in the industry. So check that out. It's on Facebook and on YouTube. And Eric, what do you got?
Yeah, that's it. If you guys didn't get a chance to see that last week, check it out. It was a good episode. So, hey, so this week, super glad everybody's here. Glad to see everybody again. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Mike today is going to cover proper cabling operations using an electromechanical machine. So today we've got a 1065 set up in our shop in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Mike is going to go through some proper techniques and operating procedures for successfully navigating and tackling some root issues in a line. So with that, I think we'll toss it over to Mike here and we'll get started.
All right.
All right, Eric and Emily, thank you guys. So, like Eric said, we have an electromechanical machine here. We're going to be operating the big boy, my favorite, the 1065 today. We got a 3.5-inch circular saw that's on here now. And if you look down at this clear tile, we have 1/4-inch dowel rods that we're going to simulate as tree roots. So what I want to do is show you how to properly clean obstruction out of a line with this demonstration here. Okay, so make sure our machine's on. Guys, always get in the habit. If you walk away from your equipment, you either disconnect it at the power source or put your machine in neutral. Please always do that. Get very familiar with that. Kids are curious, right? So when you are at a homeowner's house and you have to go upstairs or run out to the truck, last thing you want is for a child to hit the air switch, the machine be on. So please always make sure that your machine is off when you walk away from it. Okay? All right. So when I get to a main line, I want to make sure that I'm pulling the cable down to the obstruction. I don't want to turn the power feed on and just go, because what will happen is my reaction time is not faster than the torque on this cable, okay? So if I just put this power feed forward and let it go and start chewing through this line, what's going to happen is this cable is going to torque up, and we're going to show you that. So for right now, I'm going to hand feed it until I get down to my obstruction. So I can't push that cable anymore. So now I can go ahead and start operating the machine.
You know, another thing I think it's important to point out as Mike's getting his gloves on is the fact that I want everybody to notice where the machine is in relationship to the access point of that pipe. Mike looks like he's probably about 18 inches from it. We don't recommend anything more than 3 feet. If you've got to be more than 3 feet away from your access point, you need to have a cable safety guide attached to that pipe or something that, and there's an example of the cable safety guide right there Mike's holding. You want that on there if you've got to be a distance that's more than 3 feet away. Because like Mike said, reaction times, you might think you've got it under control, but the last thing you want to do is get wrapped up in a piece of cable, especially something like a 6/6 or a 3/4 cable. That's a bad day.
No, that's a great point, Eric. Now, one thing that Eric and I get asked all the time, proper way to run this machine, Do you want your foot on here, on the air switch, or do you want your knee on here? Guys, this is a preference for you. However you feel comfortable. You just want to make sure that if this cable gets bound up or something bad happens, your reaction time is quick enough to let off that air switch. Now, if I use my foot, I don't feel as stable and as secure with the machine. So personally, I like to use my knee, okay? I feel more stable with equal weight on the ground, and I can take good control of the machine here. So what I'm gonna do is, now that I'm at this obstruction, I'm going to show you the power feed way. This is the way that I do not recommend it, and we're gonna show you how quick this cable can torque up if you're just running the power feed. Once we get done with this demonstration, I'm gonna show you the way that Eric and I prefer to run this machine. So we're gonna tighten down the power feed knob. And guys, it's critical. You don't want to tighten this knob down super tight. We've gone out to job sites before where guys are taking channel locks to this and trying to tighten it down even more. If you bury this knob, there's typically something wrong that's going to be with your power feed bearings themselves. So should just be, as soon as you kind of get it snug, we're good to go.
I think, Mike, another thing to point out real quick is just the power feed itself and the settings on that power feed. We run into a lot of guys that say my feed isn't, I can't feed in or I can't feed out. And we find that a lot of times guys aren't set on the right setting on the feed itself.
Yeah, Eric, great point. And what happens is when I get done running this machine, I want to bring my cable all the way back to the power feed, and I'm going to take my head off. Why do I do that? Because if you're going in and out of your truck and that 3.5-inch saw blade grabs your leg, that's a bad day. There's nasty things that live down in the sewer line. And the last thing that you guys want is MRSA or HEP or anything like that. So I take that off, but I also tighten my power feed down. Because if I tighten this down, I can't move that cable anymore. It's not coming out. Also, I can't move this power feed block. Okay, now if I loosen that block, you can see the cable start to loosen up. And now I can move this block. Okay, this is an old style that we had. This is a sundial. If you guys ever get confused about where you should be at, this cable here I'm running is a 6/6. So if you look at the dial, there's not a true north and south, but you have an east to west. So horizontally, I'm at 5/16. I want to get up to 6/6. So I'm going to go counterclockwise. 1. See that bearing move? Now I'm at 3/4. One more time. Now I'm properly set at 6/6. Now, the other side I can inspect. That looks good. Now, why do I tighten this down when I get done with that job? Because what happens is if you don't, and you're driving and you hit speed bumps, or you're going up and down a flight of stairs, these can move on you if it's not tight. So just to ensure that you're on the right setting, just go ahead and tighten that back down. All right. Let's go ahead and run this with the power feed, and I'm going to show you how quickly this cable will actually torque up in this line. Back and forward. Did you see how quick that happened, Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it happens real quick, and luckily the cable didn't get out of shape on you. You know, when it really torques up, if you were to keep going, you might think, well, I don't have that much cable out. The cable don't care. That cable's going to twist. So. And in that short a span, that's going to be a bad twist. So you want to be mindful of it and really let the machine and you don't want to ram and jam it in there. You want to let the machine, the cable and the saw blade do the work.
Yeah, because guys, think about this. I'm only now about 5-6 feet out. Think about what happens if this cable now is 70 feet out. So you have 70 feet of torque that now has made its way to the power feed. Typically when that happens, it's too late. So again, I'm going to show you how to kind of work the power feed if that's something that you want to do. But again, once we're done with this and showing you the torque, I want to show you the way that Eric and I recommend. see, I'm working that power feed. I'm going from forward, neutral, reverse, okay? But you can see how much tension was actually on that cable. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the power feed and gauge it, and I'm gonna go to the end of this clear tile. I'm gonna hit the end of that cap. That cap is gonna act as another intrusion, right? Another blockage. And I want you to see how that cable torques up inside of this line. That quick. You can see, Eric, that cable now is starting to twist on itself inside that line, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's a lot of stored energy that develops in that cable real quick. And like Mike said, if you get 70 feet down the line, not only do you risk the potential of that cable twisting up on you, you actually risk the potential of the cable snapping. And whether you want to call it lucky or unlucky, hopefully if it snaps, it does it outside of the line, because if that cable snaps in the line, you've either got to have some sort of retriever to grab that cable and hopefully pull it back, or you're looking at the potential of having to dig at that point.
Right. So as the cable is now torqued inside that line, what I want to do is I'm going to release my power feed. I want to get that tension off there. Now I can pull that tension off, okay? But again, I hope that you guys can understand and appreciate the amount of torque and how fast that cable does torque up on you, okay?
Hey, Mike, you talked about taking the tension off that cable. Another way that if you're bound up, the 1065, the 2001, these machines have magnetic motor brakes on them. If you get in a situation where you've got torque built up and you're either stuck or you just can't undo the torque, one tip for the guys is put the machine in neutral. Put that switch in the middle on the forward reverse switch on the machine. That's going to disengage any kind of power going to the motor, but it's going to allow the magnetic motor brake, when you hit the air switch, it's going to allow the magnetic motor, the brake, to disengage. Then you can actually manually let the drum actually spin and decrease the amount of torque and tension that's on that cable. So that's just your little pro tip for the day right there. If you're in a line and you got too much torque on there and you can't get it to release, you want to go to the neutral position on the machine, hit the air bulb, and let the drum actually just rotate in the opposite direction, and you'll take the tension off that cable.
Right, good points there. So now here, I'm going to show you the way that we recommend running this cable machine when we get an obstruction in here. Again, when I get to a main line, I want to push my cable out as far as I can. Now, when I do that, again, I'm not adding extra torque on that. I can now control that torque with my hands, okay? This motor is a lot more violent than my hands are going to be, right? So I am just manually pushing it down there. Once I get to that clog, I'm going to bring it back maybe, 6 inches to a foot, and then I can go ahead and start working that, okay? But I'm not using the power feed at this point. The power feed for me is great once I get past the obstruction. So if we're in a basement application, we're running a main line through a stack or through a floor clean out, we can see the water level inside of that floor drain. If we get past that first obstruction, I know that the obstruction's gone. The water starts to exit through that floor drain. Now I'm going to use the power feed, okay? Because now it's a lot easier. I'm not pushing and pulling and everything else. Now I can use that to guide my way down and guide my way back. But I want you to see how quick I can get through this without running through that power feed. Okay, at the obstruction.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the point there is,
and you can see as I'm going through here now, when I get to this gap, control what that cable is doing down inside the line. Again, when I get all the way down to that cap, we see before how it torqued up. Now I have good response time, and I'm not relying on that motor. I can pull back on that.
Yeah, that's a great demonstration. I mean, you can see that by using the machine, the cable and the blade itself versus the power feed, trying to do it with a power feed, you can exert a lot more control on the blockage, and that's I mean, Mike went through that blockage, same amount of dowels, and he probably went through it in more than less than half the time it took to go through with a power feed the first go round.
Yeah, and one thing, Eric, that we always tell these technicians is, listen, guys, I get it. Like today, it's Friday, right? Everybody wants to get home to their families. It's 5 o'clock. Dispatch just sent you another call. Guys, you just seen how quick and easy that was, okay? I promise you, if you start to use this method here, you are going to save your company a lot of money on damaged cable. Because again, there was no torque on that whatsoever. And Eric, I mean, as licensed plumbers, I think me and you can attest, a good sewer cable like the Spartan Magnum cable, this should last you guys a year, longer than
So yeah, at least
if you're running it properly.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, we have a lot of guys that come to us and tell us they've had cable for years, but those are few and far between. So I think a lot of what we see is just, frankly, it's not proper operation. That's a great example of how to properly get through a blockage. I mean, I've always encouraged in my trainings in the past, guys, utilize the power feed to get out to and back from the blockage. Nobody wants to push 100 foot of cable and pull 100 foot of cable back. I mean, that's just a bad day. The power feed at its maximum will get you about 30 foot a minute in terms of feed. And it doesn't matter how hard you turn the dial down on that power feed. More is not better, the best way. I mean, you reach a point of diminishing return. So tighten that power feed down till it's got some decent tension on there. Don't need to over torque it. The only thing you're doing when you over torque that knob down is you're putting a lot of strain and stress on the bearings. I've literally seen guys blow up bearings in their power feed. So just a little bit will do you.
Yeah, no. So again, we're running 1/4 inch dowel rods. I mean, this is wood. I mean, these are tough, right? So again, these are going to be slightly tougher than tree roots that we're running into. So again, the way that I just showed you to do it manually, now what I want is to show you when I'm running this the proper way. I want you to watch my hands here, okay? I want you to watch the technique that I'm using. And again, guys, this only takes, Eric, typically at the Institute, guys get through this station in what? 10 seconds or less, right? So I
Yeah.
think 10 seconds or less is going to save you a lot of money on this cable.
Yeah. Mike, I'm going to throw in a question. We've got our TM Brian Elliott that was on with us 2 weeks ago. Brian's asked a question that I think it's a good one. Do you prefer to operate smaller machines like the 300 and 100 that do not have brakes on the motor in the same way?
Well, so Eric, I'll jump in here first, and then please piggyback off this. So there's benefits to running both of them, right? I really like my 1065 for the power, but I do like the brake, because if you look at the machine now, if I run this machine, that brake stops it. Okay, so
Yep.
what happens is, if I were to get this cable, if I'm more than the recommended 3 feet away, and God forbid, if this cable were to wrap around my arm or my hand, whatever, it's not going to keep going. It's not going to flip me over. This is now going to stop. And again, why we're at that safe distance is now I can disengage the brake should anything bad happen. Now, as far as the clutch on a 300 machine, listen, a 300 machine is a powerhouse in its own right to run a main line. Now, what that clutch does on the back is that will adjust itself. It will slip. The clutch is designed to slip to save that cable, and save the operation of the machine itself. So, again, I mean, for me, Eric, it's just a preference. I like my big boy here. I like the brake on the motor, but again, I think the clutch definitely holds its own weight.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I like the weight and the feel of the 1065. I think it's a super safe platform. But the 300 and the 100 definitely. Yeah, I would recommend operating the machines in the same way. I've seen guys put power feeds on a 100. I really don't see the need for it. I mean, that's even if you're pulling 100 foot of 30 seconds back, the amount of times or the number of times that you should expect to do that aren't going to be that many. I always worked my 100 back and forth by hand, my 300 the same way.
Yeah, so the 100 machine with a power feed, right? It's kind of a 50-50. Guys want it, guys don't. For me, I did not like to run it on a 100 machine because it's a smaller cable and I can feed it out a lot quicker. Because once I take this power feed and I make it a lower setting, it takes a really long time for that cable to come out. Now, if you're doing commercial or industrial and you're running that 30-second cable all day long, 100 feet out, 100 feet back, yeah, at that point, I really want this power feed on there because that's going to save my back. It's going to save my arms. Eric, we always joke around. You see the old time plumbers, they got huge Popeye arms, right?
That's it.
That's from years and years of
Yeah.
pulling cable back and non-aluminum pipe wrenches. So,
Yep.
again, I mean, they all got their place. I mean, a 300 machine is what a lot of guys are going to with a one technician in a truck because it's a little bit more easier to get up and down the steps. The older generation, my generations, and before me, they go with tried and true here.
Yep.
All right. All right. So again, if you could focus on my hands here, I want to show you how I can work through the obstruction here. Okay. And again, guys, I know we always, Friday night at 5 o'clock, we tend to rush. But I always say this, and my daughter, who's doing a great job filming this right now, I always tell her, Jenna, when you rush, Jenna, what happens when you rush?
You do something bad.
Bad things happen, right? When we're not paying attention, bad things happen. So again, guys, it might take a few more seconds. It might take, less than that. But again, just pay attention and try to emulate what I'm doing here. Okay.
Another thing I want to point out for the audience, Mike, is if everybody's noticing, Mike's taking those ugly gloves on and off basically after he runs the cable. What's important to know is that Mike's PP'd up all the way. He's got nitrile gloves on underneath, and every time he goes to run that cable, he's putting those ugly gloves on. Guys, you never want to run a machine with nothing more than a set of nitrile or jersey gloves or something else, because what you're asking for is trouble and another bad day when the helix on that cable opens up, when it binds, and when it closes again. If it has an opportunity to grab a jersey glove or grab that nitrile glove, it'll rip that glove off your hand way faster than you'd ever think you could respond to it. And if you're lucky, it'll rip the glove off. We've seen some significant injuries from guys having a glove removed by not wearing a proper glove. So always glove up, nitrile, and some sort of either an ugly glove like Mike's got on now, or the leather staple gloves, but something intended for proper cabling operations.
Yeah, no, Eric, I appreciate that. Those are good points. Again, we should all know we never, ever, ever just grab a cable with a bare nitrile glove. That helix on the cable is going to open up, and it's going to grab me immediately. Now, I'm sure some of you this has happened to. Just think of a 1/4-inch cable. When that thing grabs your finger, it hurts. You grab a 6/6 cable or a 3/4-inch cable, that's a bad day. That's nothing to run home to mama about. Okay. Now, again, like Eric said, the jersey gloves. We start our day in the morning. It's 6:30, 7 o'clock. We always stop at Speedway, maybe get your cup of coffee. A lot of guys would grab those jersey gloves. Listen, don't use those. They're terrible. You want to use ugly gloves, leather gloves. Harbor Freight has these long welding gauntlets. We have our own ugly gloves, our leather staple gloves. So, again, please use the proper PPE. All right, Jen, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so again, watch my hands here. Watch my motion. You can see the small amount of torque on this cable. If I'm at the clock, I'm going to come back. That's it. Done, guys. It's that quick. Okay. So again, just that little step there of working that obstruction back and forth with your hands is going to save you a lot of time on servicing your equipment, trying to get broken cable out of this bad boy. It's also going to save you guys a lot of money in the long run.
That's it. That's it. That's a great demo, Mike.
Yeah, Eric, one thing that we always hear at the Institute is, plumbing shops go back to their own shops and they make a demonstration jig just like this. Guys, this is a great training tool for your technicians. I know you guys, typically have weekly meetings. Some of you guys have daily meetings. Create a jig like this. Get a piece of tile. I would recommend not clear because a lot of technicians like to look down at the clog. Put a piece of 3 or 4 inch PVC in here, drill some 1/4 inch holes, put some dowel rods in, and let those technicians feel that. The one great thing about Spartan Tool is our Spartan Advantage or our Territory Manager model. Our Territory Managers would love to come out and get the opportunity to come out to your shop and show you guys how to properly run these machines. Eric, when I first got started, I was running a Model 300 machine. After years before running a 1065. Once I got that 300 machine, I was damaging cable left and right. Every time I put a 5.5 down, that cable was coming back destroyed. Obviously, my boss was a little upset about it. We called Tim Gage, who's one of our fantastic territory managers up in the Cleveland area. He came down, did a training for us, showed us something just like this jig setup that we have here. And Eric, I tell you what, I didn't break cable from here on out. Just something just like that, a 5-minute demo is going to save you so much time and money.
Absolutely. Yeah. Take your time, guys. Let the cable and the blade do the work. That's probably the best advice that we can give you is let the machine and let the cable do the work. Don't try to hog through it with a power feed. And you'll be a lot better off. So, hey, Mike, we got our original OG, Eduardo Quintero out in the LA there. He's asking a question about what grease is the best to lube a power feed. And I'm kind of glad he asked because I think we got an episode coming up we're going to cover that on.
Yeah. So, Eric, you want to touch on the grease here real quick?
Yeah. So, Eduardo, for your benefit, we'll give you a little teaser to the early episode coming up next week. When we break these down, any good axle or bearing grease is going to be suitable. And next week, I'm going to probably steal a little bit of Emily's thunder here, but next week we're going to cover the proper tear down and cleaning and rebuilding, reassembly of a power feed for you guys.
Yeah, so, Eduardo, I know you love the 1065s probably almost as much as I do. But, yeah, proper maintenance. I kept a can of WD-40 in my Spartan toolbox when I was running the cable back. And I would just use WD-40 as the cable was coming back. I'd lubricate the cable, and that would also clean the bearings out. So as I'm bringing the cable back to the power feed, I'm just spraying it right inside there. But any type of grease really is going to be okay for that. Lithium, we can use Blue Moss, anything like that. So Eric will kind of go over his recommendations next week, and that should be a really good episode.
Yep, looking forward to it. Awesome. Well, I'm sorry I stole a little bit of your thunder, but we'll kick it over to you.
Hey, Emily.
Yeah, what's up, Mike?
What are we doing next week?
I actually know this time. Next week, we're going to be talking about the basics of power feed, like Eric said, breaking it down, maintaining, cleaning. So be sure to tune in and get your text to tune in and to see that.
Yeah, that's going to be a good episode. So, all right, guys. Eric, Emily, any closing thoughts for our viewers today?
No, just double down on it, guys. Take it easy on that cable. Let the cable and the blade do the work for you. Slow and steady wins the race there on that cable operation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any technical tips. I'm not a plumber, but everybody stay safe and healthy.
Wait a minute, you are a certified drain cleaner.
I actually am, and I cleared a stoppage in my toilet. So there you go.
Technical advice all day long.
Yeah.
Well, guys, listen, I know, especially with the pandemic going on, we could all use an extra day this weekend. You know, don't forget about what we're celebrating either. You know, Memorial Day isn't just a day for us to have an excuse for a day off and get family together for a cookout. Remember what we're celebrating.
Yeah.
I hope that you guys have a great weekend. I hope you come back rested, recharged, and ready to take on the world next week. So I'm going to head on downstairs now. Sewer Raiders, signing off.
See you guys.
Hi, everyone.